YouTube. It's your man once again, Benteke, with the Dell XPS 8940. So it's been about 3 weeks since I reviewed and upgraded this system, and I have had comments and questions from friends and viewers on how I managed to mount a cooler from a third-party manufacturer. Since a lot of people have had issues trying to replace the stock cooler from Intel with a third-party cooler. So for the love of friends and viewers, I decided to mount the Arctic Freezer Extreme and shoot a description on how I went about this particular CPU cooler upgrade. So as you can clearly see, the Arctic Freezer Extreme, the Freezer Extreme came with this bracket and 4 mounting pins, and also some set of machine screws. So upon popping the system open, I guess the first step would be to mount the stock cooler that came with the system from Intel, and cleaning the thermal paste, the leftover thermal paste on the CPU. And the next task would be to mount the brackets that came with the Arctic Freezer Extreme. And this is where things begin to get a little bit complicated, since Arctic Freezer offered us these 4 mounting pins, which is somehow impossible to use on this particular motherboard, since the motherboard came with a back plate which allows any cooler to be mounted only using screws. So in order to use these mounting pins, you would have to take the entire motherboard out and install the bracket using these 4 pins. To avoid the complication, the workaround would be to find 4 machine screws and screw the bracket directly onto the motherboard, or into the back plate and onto the motherboard. So once done installing the bracket, the next step would be to apply some thermal paste. So after applying the thermal paste, the only step left now will be to mount the Arctic freezer is trim, and to do that, I remove the first the CPU fan, the fan from the cooler, to have easy access to the mounting screws. So after taking out the fan and aligning the cooler, you can see we have easy access to the two screws that is meant to hold the cooler onto the bracket. So we fasten the screws evenly onto the bracket. So once done mounting the CPU cooler firmly onto the bracket, the next step would be to install the fan. And as you can see, to enable easy access to the pins, I removed my hard drive to give me more access and more room to be able to attach the cable onto the motherboard. So after attaching the fan onto the motherboard, the only thing left will be to lower the CPU fan and into its place, and that is done. So one last tip for you pals, if you happen to have upgraded from the stock cooler onto a third-party cooler, or change the system fan and happen to be getting an error message like this, in my next video I would elaborate more on how to on a workaround this error, how to avoid this error. Thank you very much.